Jazzcast Pros.
Have you ever been so excited because you found a workflow, you found a system that works for you, and just then the algorithm changes? Or do you feel like you're in flow and you know what's going on, and then it's like a bomb drops and you're faced with this whole set of problems? Have you ever felt like, oh, I know what I want to do? Maybe you have this epiphany of like, I want to do this one thing. But then all of a sudden there's this huge amount of friction to get there. Any entrepreneurs know what those frustrations can feel like. In today's episode, I'm going to talk through how to kind of categorize those things that come up and then how you can take action to work through those problems. Welcome to High Vibe Table Talks, the podcast to help you, the cautiously ambitious woman, remove mental barriers and take action now so that you can achieve your high vibe desires. I'm Rashawn, your high vibe curator, cheerleader, and accountability partner. As a wife, a mother, and an entrepreneur who recently quit my job to follow my dreams, I understand why you may be hesitant to throw caution to the wind and take that leap. And this episode is called Anchor Problems versus Gravity Problems. Gravity problems are something that you can't fix, and anchor problems are something that you can fix. And that doesn't mean there's nothing you can do about gravity problems, but I'm going to share with you a couple of questions that you can ask yourself when you are facing a problem or friction in your business to figure out, do I need to compromise or do I need to take action? So when I first heard about this idea of gravity problems versus anchor problems, it's from this book called Designing Your Life. I highly recommend it. I'm really enjoying I'm listening to it right now. My dad has tried to get me to read it for a long time, and it has just really reframed how I kind of like dissect things that I am struggling with in my business. And if you have listened to this podcast before, especially when I talk about the sales process, I talk about how I'm in my Thomas Edison era and I'm figuring out all the ways in which things don't work so I can find the way that it does. And this, I had that idea before. I heard this saying of gravity problems versus anchor problems, but it has helped me to kind of detach from the outcome that I thought should be happening. So at first, I'll start with describing what is a gravity problem and what is an anchor problem. A gravity problem is something that you will never be able to change. No matter in how stubborn I feel like being, no matter how hard I push, I'm never going to be able to change the law of gravity. I will never be able to jump and not have gravity pull me back down to earth. It is what it is. Therefore, it is unactionable. No matter how many actions I take, that law of gravity will exist forever and ever unless I decided to go live on the moon. So there aren't things that I can change to upend gravity. And so in the book, they talk about how that is a circumstance more than a problem. If I want to live on the face of this earth, I'm always going to have to deal with gravity. I would love to be 5'7". That would be like a cool height for me to be. There is nothing that I can do to suddenly grow 5 inches. If anything, I am probably actually going to go the other way. I am 5'2". That is my circumstance. If anything, I will be lucky to be 5 foot at the end of my life. And so that's a gravity problem. And so maybe like you're finding clothes and you're like, this would fit me so much better if I was 5'7". I wouldn't have to hem these pants if I were taller. I wouldn't have to wear these with X if I just had a longer torso. Again, that's nothing that you're going to change. That is your circumstance. And so it's like, how can I find clothes that really complement someone who is 5'2"? How can I find shoes that really fit size 6? Like, these are things that I am never going to change these things. So I have to figure out, how can I make the best based on the circumstance that currently is and or will always be. Okay. I've now explained a gravity problem. An anchor problem is actionable. We get very stuck on like, this is supposed to happen in this way, and how come I can't get it to work in this way? In the book, they describe this is all about a reframe. So it's just reframing, not even necessarily the outcome, but like how you get there. And I have a couple examples of both of these as we go through it, but we get something in our mind, especially nowadays with social media, of like, oh, so-and-so has this, I want that, and they did it like this, so I'm going to continue to do it like that, so I will get the desired outcome that I want. Meanwhile, you have no idea what the actual circumstances were. Maybe yours are very different. Your path is not meant for that. We talk a lot about how we manifest things and everybody has like their own lane and their own journey to get there. And we see other people's journeys and we're like, well, I want that journey, and it's like, okay, you have no idea what their journey was actually like. What was their starting point? What did they have to sacrifice to get there? What were they set up with ahead of time? So there's so many other factors that come in. It's just really easy to say like, oh, so-and-so did this and they got that outcome. So that's what I want. So I'm going to do that. I have a current client who is working with someone on like a job search. And this person she's working with is like, oh, here is the formula that I use to find my last 3 jobs. I did A, then I did B, then I did C. And so my client was like, oh, okay, so I'm going to do A, and then I'm going to do B, and then I'm going to do C. But the job she was looking for wasn't exactly like the job that the other one was looking for. Her personality wasn't exactly like the personality of the other person. So like that formula just didn't work for her. It wasn't aligned for her. Even though the outcome that she wanted, she thought that's how she had to get it. And so she had to step back and reframe, okay, that's how this person did it. How can I do it in a way that is most aligned with me? My first example in my current business that is like really specific, because I don't want to give like too many specifics about other people's examples. I have been doing a lot of prospecting on LinkedIn, and I've talked about this in previous episodes. If you would like my LinkedIn script, I shared this on Instagram the other day. DM me script and I will send you my LinkedIn script. My latest Instagram post talks about the impact that my newest script has made on my life and on my sales funnel. So DM me script if you over on Instagram or LinkedIn if you would like my script. And so I had this like formula, and I talk a lot about sales formulas and sales scripts because you can increase the number of outreach without increasing how much brain power you're putting towards it. And so I had this formula of I find a person who seems aligned with me and my mission, and I connect with them. And when I connect with them, I send them a note, and here's the script. And then if they accept and respond, we can start a conversation. If they don't answer, then here's the second message that I send them just to nudge them and say, hey. I was doing about 30 LinkedIn connections a week. And so 120 a month. And I was doing that for quite a while, 4 months maybe. And all of a sudden, I can't remember now if it was June 1st or July 1st, it doesn't matter. And I was on LinkedIn and I did the first one and it was like, okay, you sent a note, you have 4 left for the month to send. And it was like June 3rd or something. And I was like, wait, what? What just happened? So I sent another one and then I used all 5 and I was like, that can't be. I was doing like 30 a week. What do you mean I have 5 to send the whole month? And then it was like, you need to upgrade in order to get more messages. And I was like, are you joking? And I know it's all about business. Like LinkedIn wants its money and it saw the ROI of, hey, all these people are sending all these notes and creating sales funnels out of them. And we can create more profit if we start charging for that. But Sales LinkedIn Navigator is like $90 a month. So all of a sudden I had to start throwing $90 a month at something to do what it had done for free for years for me. And I got really frustrated by this. I was so frustrated because, I had this like process that was working. My free virtual co-workings on Wednesday are like way fuller than they ever have been. I'm having amazing conversations that are just like soul filling while also figuring out if people are or are not my ideal client. Like everything is working the way it's supposed to. And then all of a sudden it just got blown up. And I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding me? And I called my dad and I was so frustrated. And I dived into my mastermind about how frustrated I was. As I was going through that, I was listening to this book, and for whatever reason, I was like cleaning and I was like processing it, and it hit me. This is an anchor problem. I have found a way that works. All of a sudden, there's a cog in the wheel and it's not working. So I'm just going to blow it up and throw the baby out with the bathwater because that must not work. And so all of a sudden it hit me that I had to reframe this. And I said, okay, how can I still get this outcome, or how can I take action so I potentially get the same outcome without doing how I think it should be or how it has been working? I said, okay, how can I get the same vibe of my message, no pun intended, that I was sending in the connection requests, and how can I put that in other places so people still get it without that note? And so what I did is I said, oh, okay, so when people get that note, if they are open to a request, they're probably going to my profile. So how can I update my profile so that it has like those themes in it? So I kind of redid my profile, and it didn't take me really all that long. And then I said, okay, but I can still send them that message after they connect with me. It doesn't have to be before they, write with the request. Like maybe my people who actually connect with me will go up. Maybe it'll go down. I don't know. Instead of sending in the invitation, I started sending it as soon as people connected with me. So that message still came across between my profile, and if they connected with me, that message. And I'm still having wonderful conversations. And one of the things that actually came out of it is I had someone send me a message and they were like, your profile is so intriguing. They were like, I have never really seen anything like it. And I am just like so curious for you to tell me more. Like, because in it, in part of it, I changed it and talk about how I'm building tables. And she was like, I don't think you actually mean physical tables, but can you tell me more? And I was like, wow. Like, if that wasn't direct feedback of what you did is right, like, I don't know what else is. It was an anchor problem. And the reason I say anchor problem is because like we put our anchor in the water and like, this is how it's supposed to work. But if we just picked our anchor up out of the water and moved around a little bit, we'd be like, oh, if I just looked at it from this way, then things could be different. Something similar happened to me when I was like, I want to reach more people. I need to like have another revenue stream, but it needs to be at like a lower price point. So I said, okay, someone introduced me to this community platform called Mighty Networks. And I was like, oh, this is exactly what I was looking for based on the idea of I want to reach more people at a lower price point, and I want to bring them motivation, education, community, and inspiration. And so I joined the platform, and I paid for it up front and started like promoting it kind of, but it's like this weird chicken or the egg. Like, do I start inviting a bunch of people and focus on my sales process, or do I fill it with a bunch of content and then invite people in? And I was kind of just always trying to do both. And then I got to the point where I hated showing up to the platform. Like I just did not enjoy it at all. And I don't know if it's like the type of content that I was creating, or the fact that when I was creating content, I felt like I should be selling. And when I was selling people, I felt like I wasn't really there wasn't a lot there. So what am I selling them? Like, what am I giving them? And I really struggled with that. And after almost a year, I was like, this is not it. But I saw so many other people who had these communities and these platforms and these Patreons, and that's what they're doing. And so that's what I should be doing to grow my business and create six figures and do all these things. And I really hated showing up to the platform. So after about a year, I gave it up. And right around that time was when I was introduced to podcasting and said yes to podcasting. And this podcast was the best thing that I said yes to in 2023. And it really has given me the space to motivate, inspire, educate, build community, all of those things that I was looking for. But I said, oh, I have to do it in this way. And if I just reframed it, then podcasting could have been it. And so those are a couple examples of anchor problems where, we get one of the things I like to talk about in my community is like spokes on a wheel. And what I ask people when they're, talking about their business and the things that they want to create is, what's the product of the product of the product? Or what's the why of the why of the why? And what it really helps to do is simplify down, like, why is that important to you? Like, I want to make dog treats that are healthy for the dogs. Why? Because I have seen what an impact having a pet can do on a person. Okay, why? Because it is this being that lives in your home and is like another part of your family. And, I wouldn't feed the dog treats that are out in the market to my worst enemy, let alone my best friend who like wags their tail every time I walk in the door. And it's really like distilling it down of like, you want to take homegrown ingredients, help your community by sourcing these ingredients from your community so that someone can say, I love you to this animal in their life. It's about community. It's about saying, I love you. It's about like connection with your family. And so right now it looks like dog treats, but it could also look like maybe you're not making the dog treats because maybe that's inaccessible and you don't have the kitchen equipment for it right now. But maybe you can build someone in your community who does dog treats, and you build a box because you also source the bandanas from someone down the street who buys their fabric from this incredible fabric store who's 3 doors down, and you put them all together and you use like compostable friendly boxes. And like at the end of the day, it's about like taking care of the environment, building community, saying I love you to friends and family. And you accomplish the same thing, but in a different way. So those are some kind of like anchor problems of like, I just need to reframe. Or what's the why of the why of the why? So maybe I can reattack it in a different perspective. An example of a gravity problem from the book is, I wish my partner and I could live together, and I love my lifestyle in San Diego and I have no interest in changing it. And they have their lifestyle in San Francisco and they have no interest in changing it. How can we compromise? Do we get like an Airbnb every other month in halfway in between? Do they spend 1 weekend a month here and 1 weekend a month there? Like, it's not accomplishing exactly what you want of living together with your partner while maintaining your life in San Diego. Because if they're not going to move and you're not going to move, those two things are mutually exclusive. For me currently, I wish my garden was weed free. I'm not willing to devote the time with my current bandwidth to spend many, many hours having my garden be weed free, and Mother Nature is always going to be creating weeds. And so I just have to accept that I have weeds in my garden. A business example, I like selling my art for $10 a piece, and I want to replace my 6-figure income, but I only want to make art right now in my free time, and I can only make about 10 pieces a month with my current process, and I don't really want to change my process. So like, there's something in there that makes those things be mutually exclusive. I can't make 10 pieces a month at $10 a piece and make 6 figures. Like, that's just not something that is feasible. So I think the biggest question to ask yourself is, can I take action steps to get closer to my outcome? How can I distill down my problem to see if there's another way to reevaluate it and take action so I can get my outcome, but maybe not the way that I'm like so focused on right now? If the answer is no, then it is a gravity problem, and you have to figure out how can you compromise. Another example in the book, it says, I want to make $200,000 as a poet. And this is a way of like potentially reframing it based on the why of the why of the why. If you want to make $200,000 as a poet, why? Because I want to have the time and financial freedom to be making $200,000, and I want to spend time writing poetry. I want to dedicate time writing poetry because it's something I'm very passionate about. And the fact of the matter is that very few poets get paid $200,000. And again, like, what were the sacrifices, or what was their journey to get there that says, oh, they just started writing poetry and they started making $200,000. You know, Colleen Hoover wrote It Ends With Us and all of a sudden was a multimillionaire. Well, that's not actually the journey. Are you willing to go on the actual journey it takes to get there? And so a way to reframe it is, can you have a rewarding career that pays you $200,000 a year and you enjoy showing up to, and gives you the resources as far as like time to also write poetry often? You know, not a job where you make $200,000 and you come home at the end of the night and you're exhausted and you're snappy with your family and you just feel so emotionally drained that you have no creative energy left at the end of the day. But can you find one where you do have creative energy at the end of the day and you do get to spend time with your family and go on vacation? And maybe you have 8 weeks vacation and you get to spend 2 of those on a writing retreat. And just like all you're doing is just like being creative and writing poetry, and see if you can create a revenue stream from that, if that's something that you feel called to do. But it's not this, I want to make $200,000 as a poet. How can you reframe it? One of the other things that they talk about in this book that I really, really like is prototyping. So if you say, I want to make $200,000 as a poet, try making $10,000 as a poet. Like, really try like dedicating time to where your poetry, which you maybe feel you love doing and it just brings you so much joy, and like you share it with others and they really enjoy it. But like making $200,000 as a poet means you write a lot and you pitch yourself a lot, and you probably are on deadlines for your poetry. And maybe like you start doing that and you're like, I can't have a deadline to my creativity. Well, then like maybe writing poetry books like just isn't the way for you to get to where you want to be. And so in the book, it talks about an example of like, I want to move to Tahiti and work at a tiki bar and, you know, be in this like beautiful country and meet all these people. Well, like, have you ever been a bartender? Like, and maybe you have and you love it, but maybe it seems good in theory, but in practice, it's actually something very, very different. So how do you prototype it so that you can see if those are the steps you actually want to take? Do you know somebody? And with the way the internet is today, you could meet someone who works at a tiki bar in Tahiti and have a conversation with them. Like, what does their life really look like? And can you really imagine that being your whole life? So, to summarize, if you can take actionable steps to get the outcome that you want, if you can like reframe it and figure out there's a way to do it maybe a little bit different and still get the outcome that you're looking for, it's an anchor problem. If you just are going to have to compromise some things, it's a gravity problem. Also looking at like, if you really, really want something and you really want to like build something, ask yourself like the why of the why of the why, and really distill it down into like, why do you think that this is exactly what you want? Because that might help you say like, okay, here is the spokes on the wheel, and I think that this is what I want. So this is what it should look like. Maybe it just in this, maybe it's a season, maybe it's an era, maybe it's just who you are as a human being, maybe it's the resources you have at the moment. Could be many things, but the spoke on the wheel needs to look like this at the moment. And that's okay. I hope this was helpful. I am so excited. This is actually the last episode of season 5 about manifesting, and season 6 is when the woo wears off. So we all have been on that journey where we're like so pumped and we're like manifesting, we're like all in the energy, and then it gets hard and really digging into the messy middle. So next episode, we are going to be kicking off season 6. I can't wait to see you there. And remember that big dreams and small steps will transform your life.